Get out of here by today, you old hag. By today. And get rid of all your stuff. It's just in the way around the house. Karen made a shooing gesture. As I was getting annoyed, Mike cut in. Listen. Don't leave a single piece of trash behind. That was the last straw for me. Sighing, I muttered in response. Okay. Then I turned my back on the two of them. If you get caught cheating, you normally apologize, right? Why are they being so defiant about it? And they're telling me to leave because they want to live together? That's just ridiculous. They keep saying things that suit them, but do they not think I have incriminating evidence against them? Well, if that's the case, I don't mind. They should enjoy themselves while they can. I'll just continue preparing my revenge. I smirked to myself as I headed to my room. My name is Michelle Ogden. I've been married to my husband, Mike, for nearly 20 years. At 48, I'm working from home in design, and Mike, 2 years my senior, is thriving as a system engineer. Our son, Nick, born right after we got married, is now 19 and a respectable college student. You might imagine a happy family hearing this. But in reality, it's not the case. Lately, I've been suspicious of Mike's behavior. On weekends, he sneaks out of the house. Even on weekdays, he comes home pretty late. And when he's at home, he never answers the phone in front of me. It's clear as day he's cheating. If he's cheating, I guess divorce is the only option. Lately, I find myself thinking this more and more. Looking back, Mike's attitude changed a few years ago. It was when Nick was in middle school and our expenses started to pile up. Despite this, Mike's salary was gradually decreasing. When I asked why, Mike said, "The economy's bad, and the company's struggling." There wasn't much I could do. I cut back on our living expenses. But that wasn't enough. So, I thought about getting a job and discussed it with Mike. You know, I'm thinking of getting a part-time job. Huh? We're short on cash? There are Nick's tutoring fees too. I confided in Mike about our financial struggles. Then, suddenly, he started to get angry. It's because you're wasting money. I was taken aback by Mike's behavior. Sure, we had argued a few times before. But this was completely different from anything I'd experienced with him. Even though I thought something was off, I retorted. I don't waste money. So, you're just a loser, huh? Everyone's so incompetent. He continued complaining about how everyone at his company couldn't do their jobs right. He even had to help with sales, he grumbled. In the end, I gave up on discussing the matter with him. Then, a former colleague from the company I worked at before our marriage, who had recently started her own business, contacted me asking for help. It had been over a decade since I left that job when I got married. There was a bit of a gap, but I couldn't miss this opportunity. I eagerly accepted her offer. That's how I started working from home in design. Of course, I told Mike about it. But he just said okay. And didn't seem very interested. He barely listened to what I had to say. Nevertheless, I had officially informed him. I continued my work with pride. Then, on a certain weekday, while I was working, Nick unexpectedly came home. I'm home. What's up? Why are you home at this time? It was just past noon. At that time, Nick was in middle school. He should have had classes until the evening and then club activities. There was no way he should be home at this hour. Didn't I tell you today's the start of midterms? I suddenly remembered. Looking at the calendar, it indeed had tests written on it. I forgot. I'll get lunch ready right away. I hurried to prepare Nick's lunch. Then, from behind, Nick asked, "Mom, were you working?" "Huh? Your laptop is out, and there are all these documents." Nick was pointing at my work documents and laptop I had left on the living room table. "Oh, sorry. I'll clean it up right away." No, it's okay, you can do it later. But there's something I want to talk to you about. Nick ran to his room and soon returned with his tablet. I'm making a game. I want to be an engineer like Dad. Nick showed me the game he had been creating on his tablet. It wasn't as polished as commercial games, but it was impressive nonetheless. That's amazing. I want to go to a vocational school. Do you think Dad would agree? If you show him this, I'm sure he'll support you. I wholeheartedly supported Nick. But our hopes were soon shattered. When Mike saw Nick's game, he harshly criticized it. This is a joke, right? But no, it's totally useless. I could make this in 10 minutes. Mike laughed mockingly. I was furious at his reaction. To a system engineer like Mike, Nick's game might seem like child's play. Offering professional advice is one thing, but mocking it is unacceptable. As I was about to complain, Mike continued to Nick. If you have time to play around like this, you should be studying more. Think before you speak. When I interjected, Mike got annoyed. What? You have a problem with my parenting? Yes, I do. You should respect our son's independence more. Huh? Usually, it's the wife's job to educate the kids. If you did your job right, we wouldn't be having this issue. Mike raised his voice. I clammed up in the moment. It was useless arguing with him. I had to help Nick myself. In the end, I just listened to Mike's complaints in silence. I waited for his anger to subside. The next day, when Mike was not around, I said to Nick, Nick, I'll buy you a computer for your game development studies. Really? Yes. If your dad says anything, I'll say it's for my work. With this, I bought an expensive desktop computer for Nick, paying for it myself. Mike looked skeptical, but I asserted it was for my work. This incident gradually strained the relationship between Mike and me. I've been contemplating divorce. But it's not easy to bring it up because of Nick. These days, I've been feeling quite unsettled. On the other hand, Nick went off to college. He said he wanted to study his specialty in college and thought his dad wouldn't object. Nick had grown up to be quite clever. Maybe I can manage even if we get divorced. As I was thinking this, Nick came home from college one day. Mom, listen. What's up, Nick? I stopped my work and looked up. Nick's face was noticeably pale. I felt anxious about what might have happened. Finally, Nick hesitantly began to speak. I saw Dad cheating. Dad's cheating? When I asked for clarification, Nick elaborated. Nick's story went like this. He was heading to a lecture at college earlier. But then a friend informed him the class was cancelled. So they decided to hang out downtown. That's when he saw Mike walking arm in arm with a young woman. Nick pretended not to notice because his friends were there. But he couldn't bear it and came home. I'm sorry. If it weren't for my friends, I would have confronted him on the spot. That would have been tough. I understood Nick's difficulty. Putting that aside, I was already aware of Mike's infidelity. Reflecting on it, Mike had been acting oddly recently. He leaves early on weekends and comes home late on weekdays. He talks on the phone secretly when he's at home. It was impossible not to suspect something. That's why I had already requested an investigation into Mike's behavior. I already had the results. When I told this to Nick, he looked surprised and asked me, "So you were calm about it? Are you gonna divorce?" Well, the investigation results were positive, so probably. Okay. If that's your decision, I won't say anything. That made things easier. I intended to confront Mike when he came home that night. But he didn't return. He must have realized Nick had seen him. Mike finally came back the following Sunday, bringing an unfamiliar young woman with him. So this is the mistress. As I was thinking, the woman introduced herself. Hello, I'm Karen. I've been dating Mike. Her insincere greeting infuriated me. Mike then spoke to me. So, I'm gonna live with Karen. We're getting a divorce, so please leave. What's the reason? A smart guy like me deserves a young girl, not an old lady like you. Mike smirked. I couldn't believe his audacity, but calmly responded. Oh really? That's exactly what I wanted. I replied with sarcasm. Then Karen, looking irritated, pointed at me. An old lady like you acting all high and mighty? Think you can live alone? Unfortunately for you, I work, so I'll be fine. Then let's get divorced quickly. Karen took a divorce form from her pocket and tossed it at my feet. I'll make sure to get alimony from both of you. Karen frowned in displeasure at my words. Meanwhile, Mike was grinning, waiting. I signed the divorce papers and handed them to Mike. At that moment, Karen said triumphantly, Get out by today, you old hag. By today. And get rid of all your stuff. It's just in the way around the house. Karen made a shooing gesture. As I grew angry, Mike cut in. Make sure not to leave a single piece of trash behind. That was the final straw. I sighed and muttered in response. Okay. Then I turned my back on the two of them. When caught cheating, people normally apologize, right? Why are they being so defiant? And telling me to leave because they want to live together? That's just ridiculous. They've always said things that suit them, but do they not think I hold incriminating evidence? Well, if that's how it is, I don't mind. They'd better enjoy themselves while they can. I'll keep preparing my revenge. Smirking, I headed to my room. Before packing my belongings, I called the junk removal service. After arranging for them to collect the junk, I started packing. After a while, Nick returned home. I could hear Mike and Nick talking in the living room. But soon they started arguing. It's because Dad cheated. Shouldn't you apologize to Mom first? Shut up. It's none of your business. After their conversation died down, it became quiet. Peeking into the living room, I saw only Nick. Nick? Where's your dad? They left on a trip together. They're ridiculous. Nick stamped his foot. I felt relieved. With Mike gone, I could do as I pleased. Now was my chance for revenge. I smiled at Nick and said, Nick, I'm divorcing and moving out. Will you come with me? Of course. Then start preparing for the move. And also, I shared a plan with Nick. Hearing it, he willingly started packing. Soon, the junk removal guys arrived. I led them inside the house. Dispose of everything in these 2 rooms, the furniture and appliances. Everything? Even the new stuff? Yes. I'll buy new ones after moving. I asked them to dispose of the furniture and appliances in my room and Nick's. But not in the living room. Those were shared property with Mike. I didn't want to deal with complaints for disposing of them without permission. Anyway, I had them dispose of my things and those I bought. He'll regret it. Later that evening, I left the house. I entrusted my belongings to a moving company. I hadn't decided where to move yet, so I asked them to keep my stuff for a while. Nick and I moved to a nearby hotel. We planned to stay there temporarily. A few days later, during breakfast, Mike called. Hello? What's up? What do you mean, what's up? Did you really throw away the furniture and appliances? Huh? Of course. It was your idea, wasn't it? As I snapped back, Mike suddenly became tongue-tied, mumbling something indistinct. I scolded him. You said to throw them away. Don't complain now. Well, that's true, but... He sounded hesitant. Of course, he needed that thing. I knew what Mike was searching for. and had deliberately said everything was disposed of. As I thought this, Mike started to grovel. Which company did you use for disposal? Why does that matter? Well, I'm looking for something. I smirked to myself, thinking, just as I suspected. Then, I asked him, feigning innocence. Looking for something? The fridge, washing machine, and TV are all there, aren't they? Your stuff is untouched. No, not that, it's about a computer. Just as I thought. Mike was looking for the computer I bought for Nick. I hinted at it. A computer? I bought that for Nick. It's mine too, so I plan to dispose of it. You haven't disposed of it yet? His voice suddenly rose. Caught in my trap, I continued. Yes. I thought selling it on a marketplace app would be better. Please, give me back that computer. Huh? It's mine. Why should I give it back? Mike was speechless. But this wasn't satisfying enough for revenge. So, I made a proposition. How about this? Will you buy it from me? Buy it? Yes. I was planning to sell it anyway, so I'll sell it to you. Mike's voice brightened. Okay. It's used, so how about $1,000? What? That's too low. Let's say $20,000. What? That's a rip-off. His voice grew louder in irritation. You don't have to buy it. Why do you want a used computer anyway? When I asked, Mike began to panic. Well, that's just. You could just buy a new computer, I suggested. Fine. I'll pay $20,000 for it. Sell it to me. Thrilled inside, I informed Mike that we had a deal. Later, Mike insisted on receiving the computer immediately, but I had left it with the movers. So, I told him he'd have to wait until I settled into my new place. Despite his complaints, Mike reluctantly agreed. A few days later, I finally found a new place. With Nick's help, I moved into my new home. Right after that, Mike transferred the payment for the computer. I handed the money to Nick. Nick, use this money to start living on your own. I said, seeing it as a perfect opportunity. Nick began living alone in an apartment near his college. I eventually sent the computer to Mike's house. But I removed the external disk first. Then, I sent that disk to Mike's company, along with a letter to his boss. Soon after, I received a call from Mike's boss, and was asked to visit his company on a specified day. At Mike's company, I announced my name at the reception and waited. A man slightly older than me appeared. Hello. I'm Smith, the department head. Are you Mrs. Ogden, the one who sent the letter? Yes, thank you for your time. Please come to my office, he said, leading the way. We reached his office, where a somber-looking Mike was seated on a sofa. Michelle. Why are you here? Mike exclaimed, standing up suddenly. I'm here for my revenge, I said, smiling, as Mike turned pale. Mr. Smith then intervened. Let's begin our discussion, he suggested, changing Mike's expression. Mike sat down, sweating, as Mr. Smith placed the external disk I sent on the table. First, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Ogden, what's this about? Mr. Smith asked, placing the external disk of the computer on the table. It was the one I had sent to him. Meanwhile, Mike quickly averted his gaze. I don't know what this is about. But this was sent by your ex-wife. Moreover, it contains our company's client data? Mr. Smith gave Mike a stern look. Mike began to stammer out an excuse. It must have gotten mixed in by accident. Our company strictly prohibits taking client data off-site. That's a mistake, Mike should just tell the truth. I was inwardly laughing. This was a little before Mike and I got divorced. He had been acting strangely. One day, when I returned from shopping, Mike was inexplicably sitting in front of Nick's computer. In the living room. Of course, the pretense was that I used it. But there was no reason for Mike to use it, since he had his own computer in his room. Curious, I covertly watched him. He did something on it and then turned it off. I pretended not to notice and checked the computer's contents the next afternoon. There were unfamiliar data files written on the external disk. Looking inside, it was some kind of database. I had a sudden realization. Mike took company data home, using someone else's computer as a hiding place. How low? I thought. Shortly thereafter, we got divorced. And I took the computer with me. Did Mike not expect me to dispose of it? Maybe he thought I would leave it behind since Nick was using it. Regardless, Mike must be regretting it now. Looking at him, he seemed about to cry. What's going on? Speak clearly. I'm sorry. Mike finally admitted his guilt. Afterward, Mr. Smith scolded Mike severely. Then Mr. Smith said, "Taking company data is a theft crime or a violation of the Unfair Competition Prevention Act." What? No way. I'm going to press charges. As soon as Mr. Smith said this, Mike burst into tears. He apologized to Mr. Smith. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. No way. You'll face both criminal and civil responsibilities. But, oh no. Mike broke down crying. Watching Mike crumble in tears, I couldn't stop laughing inside. That's what you get for doing strange things. Serves you right. I was thinking about getting revenge for the infidelity when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Then a woman's voice. Did you call, Mr. Smith? Ah, yes, come in. I recognized that voice. As I was thinking, the door opened. Excuse me. Ah! I exclaimed as the woman entered. At the same time, she looked at me. Then she shouted. Ha! Why are you here? It was Karen who raised her voice. It's complicated. Shut up. This is no place for an old lady like you. She then quickly covered her mouth, noticing Mr. Smith's red face. Mr. Smith, clenching his jaw, gestured for Karen to sit down. She quietly sat where Mike had been. Once she was seated, Mr. Smith asked her. So, Karen, I have a question. You're planning to start your own business, right? Yes. In the same field as our company? Mr. Smith looked at her sternly. Feeling pressured, Karen answered hesitantly. Mr. Smith's conversation then reached a critical point. You're also in charge of managing customer data, right? Is everything okay on your end? Mr. Smith asked Karen. What do you mean? Karen was sweating profusely. At that moment, I realized something. These two were in cahoots. They planned to take out the customer data together. In essence, here's what was happening. Mike and Karen both extracted customer data from their respective companies. Karen was to start her own business first, using that data. And then Mike would join her to run the business together. Once I understood their plan, it wasn't interesting anymore. Just trying to succeed using others' efforts. How pathetic. I sighed. Meanwhile, the conversation continued. Mr. Smith was pressing Karen. I had my subordinates investigate, and it seems there has also been a data leak. Looks like you were involved, weren't you? Karen looked down, but then raised her head to start making excuses. No, it's not true. This is all because of Mr. Ogden. As she started to blame Mike, he got angry. He stood up and began complaining to Karen. Blaming me? You were the one who started this. I don't know anything about that. You did this on your own. What? You said you wanted to marry me, so I was disgusted by their petty excuses. I took out a document from my bag, placed it on the table, and addressed Mike and Karen, who were bickering. This is the result of your affair investigation. By the way, your girlfriend here has another boyfriend. What? Mike hurriedly grabbed the document on the table, which included a photo of Karen holding hands with another man. Karen! What's this about? That's none of your business. Shut up. You tricked me. Mike raised his voice. I couldn't help but comment on their ugly scene. Younger men are obviously better than old guys like you. Mike suddenly became quiet, perhaps recalling what he had said to me earlier. Well, anyway, you'll both have to take responsibility, Mr. Smith interjected. Wait a minute. This is a crime. Save your excuses for the police station. With Mr. Smith's stern words, Karen was left speechless. Afterward, the company pressed charges against Mike and Karen. They were soon arrested for theft and other charges. Additionally, the company filed a civil lawsuit for damages against them. Naturally, Karen's plan to start her own business was ruined. Her boyfriend apparently left her too. Now, both charged with theft and violations of the Unfair Competition Prevention Act, they're busy making excuses in court. But I doubt their excuses will hold up. The outcome of the trial will be interesting to watch. Even if they end up with a fine, I doubt they'll be able to pay it. I'm glad I got my alimony before all this happened. Meanwhile, I'm enjoying living alone. My design work is going well, and my income is stable. It seems Nick has a girlfriend now, and I'm looking forward to many exciting things. Maybe I'll have grandchildren causing a ruckus soon, but for now, I'm enjoying the quiet life.